Digital Skills for Cultural and Creative Industries continues with the podcast dedicated to new media, extended reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. And today we have a guest, Kристина Хара, who is a multimedia artist, curator, and educator. Hi, Kристина.
Hi, Aika.
I'd like to start by asking, what are the most active uses of this new media?
From my perspective, new media are basically infiltrating all kinds of creative industries. We can see some examples, obviously in visual arts, in fashion, in theater, in cinema, in all kinds of industries. There is different kind of uses. In fashion, I think it's one of the brightest examples. We can see how AR and VR started to infiltrate in fashion even 10 years ago, like through the digital magazines, when you can scan and there is some digital fashion pops onto you, and some filters, which everyone's been using on Instagram, obviously. It's also another example, maybe not obvious, but an example of AR in daily use. And nowadays also, of course, it's present on the fashion shows, but maybe not so obvious, even clothes which changes color. In my opinion, it's also sort of XR experience, which we can witness. But probably I'm more interested in XR as lived experience in a created space, maybe as a part of performance or in a museum space. It's a different way we can engage with art, and I think it's interesting area we are entering now, how art is changing to the metaverse we are living in.
Yes, it's all seamless, the border between the physical and digital. And I also know that advertising uses a lot of AR, for example, and VR is also used in medicine a lot, and in wellness.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. If you step out of creative fields, sure, we can also see a lot of it in science, where it basically sort of some technologies came from scientific fields.
Yeah, a lot of people believe that culture is actually part of a well-being of a human being.
It's true.
So these media are actually very helpful in that direction. But can you talk about the most successful cases when this technology, this reality has been implemented?
As we started talking about well-being, I immediately started thinking about the Team Lab. It's a fantastic, immersive museum and space based in Japan. Basically, they have not one but several spots in Tokyo itself and a few other smaller cities. And now they're doing also international projects, so you can find them in America and Singapore and other countries. What is interesting about their approach is that their experience they create, which is XR, and they use projection and immersive technology and reactive technology, which is response to your action, etc. They also very seamlessly blended with natural elements and landscape. And my lasting impression after visiting it is very different from all other immersive experiences I had, because it's more felt like I experienced something very natural, so they used water, they used smells, they used natural textures. You don't feel technology as something artificial at all. You completely disappear in the experience. They very carefully curated, and it's very interesting, completely different way on how to engage with the audience and make your art more participatory, but without making technology for sake of technology, like a lot of artificial feeling, which I sometimes have from other exhibitions, but it's not always that, because I also really like glitch artists like Ryoji Ikeda and his digital performances as a DJ and as a visual artist, which on the contrary sort of more explore how digital and how we exist in a space which is kind of sometimes reminds us of computer. I often compare my brain to computer, for example, so it's on the contrary, it's opposite spectrum of how we can use the same technology to amplify this digital and kind of artificial things we live in. Yeah, so I feel like XR is very interesting technology to cover complex experiences. That's especially how I'm using it. So for me, it's in a way poetic tool. When I'm trying to talk about migrational experiences or, for example, some complex feelings, we have some psychological issues, which is very hard to translate directly. But this technology helps me to create experience which is safe, but at the same time can cover something very complex and user can actually experience it. And I think it's like creates more lasting memory for them. And as well, it kind of alives your work. Like it cannot live without the participant. I'm getting carried away, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the technology actually goes from this very native and organic kind of extension of you, and we human beings are very complicated mechanism, and our structure is very multi-layered. We're like a layered cake, because we have not just the body, but also feelings and emotions and then intelligence and then consciousness and, connected to the higher consciousness, hopefully.
Right.
So, and this media helps us explore and realize this even more, how it's all interconnected, and it actually kind of sheds light into some corners of our being. Not seen before, but on the other hand, it's very dystopian, like technology is gonna replace us, all kinds of narratives like that. But yeah, I like how you mentioned the Japanese artists, because I think being on an island and being connected with the technology in that way, it's quite unique, a point of view. And, I'm also interested in your view, how the technologies can be used for the people who want to make their first steps, because our audience are full of creatives and artists who are very excited by this medium. So how do you get started?
So first of all, I think that immersive technology, XR, AR, VR, what is so fascinating about them is how you can find a new way to engage your audience. Basically, it's invitation for audiences to participate in your piece and experience it rather than passive viewing. So you can start with the small steps. You can just think about one element of maybe how work can react when they're doing something, or what another layer of your work they can see if they, for example, use their phone to scan it, because for nowadays our phones are basically extension of ourselves, and it's a very natural move when we take our phone and trying to, take photo in front of the artwork or zoom in into artwork to see a better stroke or take a photo of a detail particularly like. So I find it's very powerful actually that through such simple, accessible tool, you can get something unexpected. There was quite a few works like that in Venice, the last Venice which was there, and there was a very interesting way where artist who is actually analog artist, and he used traditional instruments, physical traditional instruments in her installation, but you can use app and scan it, and they've been animated. Or they can hear sound of them. So it's very simple, like just adding sound to your artwork through the phone or through scanning a QR code. So I think this is the first step, like thinking how you can add very light, simple engagement elements to your work. And the other thing is trying to simplify at first. I know it's actually a hard step. For me, it's always hard step. What is the simplest technology you can use? Not trying to overcomplicate it and from the beginning trying to build an immersive project which is going to take an entire room or something. Think about one projection, one sound, maybe one app, like one AR element. What do you need for it? So sort of, I think that the easiest way to start is with projector. Basically, you can get yourself the very cheapest, simplest projection tool on anywhere from any electronics shop, and you can start with either Touch Designer on your computer. We're going to talk maybe about Touch Designer a bit more today, but basically it's visual coding tool, so it's can be used by designers and visual artists as well as someone who works with code. If you're more into code, you can use processing or basically quite a few other Java-based codes to start doing a little bit of interactive, web-based interactive installations. For sound, you can actually go away with much simpler tools. Just QR code and uploading your sound somewhere, so it's gonna start playing automatically. So in a way, it can be very lo-fi, and then you can start building your network to make it more complex.
So you mentioned sound, and so what other technologies are accessible for beginners?
So it's sound projection. You can, if you feel a bit adventurous and confident, I suggest maybe trying physical computing. Physical computing is much easier when it sounds. I'm talking about very simple microcontrollers like Arduino. I believe nowadays a lot of even children coding classes, they start with those simple robotics microcontroller tools, so they're quite accessible. You can start with a literally child kit, like you don't need any complex. There are some very incredible artworks made actually with Arduino and Raspberry Pi microcontrollers. I think even in a Tate gallery a few years ago, there was absolutely fantastic exhibition. It's very different kind of XR. It's not using projection, everything. It's rely on smells and basically robotics. So they used, I think they used Arduino to build those flying machines, which have been emitting smell in a space. Of course, she didn't do it all by herself. She had a company of technicians who helped her, but the fact that technology was as simple as this one, it's really inspiring. Basically, you can start with very simple thing and again, like develop it to the complexity your heart desire, sort of.
Yeah, so it's not any mystery. So start simple and then maybe grow and make it more complicated with the time. And when you have some work to showcase, what are the platforms for the AR, VR artists to showcase their work?
So it's a little bit, here it maybe goes a little bit niche in my feeling. So the artists who work with Touch Designer and who do immersive work, or let's say VJing, or all kind of installation which take visual input, right, and reacts on you, or any sort of, or maybe working with sound and visual in combination. Touch Designer has a very strong community by itself. They have several events and several forums where you can share works and get feedback. So community is very strong, and that's another part of XR world that I feel that community of artists who working and developing at the same time those tools, they are very supportive. Obviously, you can share your works on social media as well, like it's very common, like YouTube, Instagram, but I think that Touch Designer as a community itself is good. Also, you can look for festivals, again, such as MUTEC. They have a lot of events. They have a lot of beginner as well events in many cities where you can show your work and get feedback, etc. I think if it's more like sculptural work, like which just include physical computing, so some alive objects, physical objects. This way, probably you need to find places where people can interact with them. Documenting for XR is very important. So apart from documenting your process, it's also important to showcase your work and show interaction to further promote and showcase your work, because sometimes it just doesn't work if we never see how other people react to it, sort of. So for me, maybe it's a little bit studio work scenario when you work with robotics. Like, after all, you need a space where you can build it, maybe invite people for private views so they interact with it and you record it. But for other tools as AR, VR, they have very accessible digital ways to spread them. So AR, unfortunately, you cannot use Instagram anymore. Until this year, it was an amazing platform where you can use your filters, add-ons, etc. for AR space, but temporarily it's not working. We don't know yet if they're gonna revive this project or not. So you need to look for alternative apps. There's a few apps for AR, and also there is a different technology. I'm looking for testing it out as well, where you can use AR with QR code. So basically it's more like physical way of using AR. So again, like, you bring in it in a physical space. I feel it's also really depends how do you position yourself? Do you see your work more as a digital artist, so you want to spread it digitally, or do you want to spread your work as in a physical space? Because for me, I always tend to showcase my work more physically, and to be honest, it's not always easy to recreate it digitally, because I need people to engage with it. And another thing, I use a lot of low lights, so I also understand there can be some limitations in documenting how you do it. So this is probably why it's good to start with digital works and later progress to more complex projection, etc., because you need someone helping you in this scenario, someone who can document your work. You cannot be everything. That is very important, especially for young artists who want to do everything by themselves. Please don't. Yeah, you need to share with audience, and you also need to share with other artists and rely on their help, especially in XR space, because in many festivals even, it's considered to be as a teamwork. So you cannot just showcase your work as a one artist. There is literally a requirement that you have to work as a team. The same Venice. There is some part of interactive works which are presented as a part of art biennale section, but there is much bigger section for immersive work, which is immersive biennale, and they only accept collectives, and they accept mostly VR and bigger experiences, almost like theatrical level, and provide space for it. So there is two kind of way how you develop yourself, how you showcase your work as an individual and as a team, and as what kind of artist you are. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. I agree with you that you totally need to document your work, because otherwise, how are people going to find out about you? And even you don't remember how you've done a project, and when you look at it in the video, or even in pictures, you can actually reconstruct and get back to where you started, and that's very important for an artist to actually be self-conscious. But when you mentioned the teamwork, so what skills are needed for the team to launch a VR, AR, and XR project?
I think before the skills, even it's really important to come up with what you're trying to achieve with your XR, VR, AR experience. Why did you choose those tools in the first place? And why do you think it's the best to implement in your experience or in your artwork or in your story? Because sometimes your story can actually dictate your tools, and it can be different ways. It can be just projection, or it can be just VR. Maybe it's a very complex project where you also need a costume designer, etc., etc. So you really need to have a clear idea, understanding. You need to do a lot of visual research and digging into your topic to make sure you're choosing tools not for the sake of tools, but tools to cover your story in the best way, in the most accessible way to your audience. As for the team, of course, you need someone who is doing to do visuals. Again, like if you're using them, if you're doing something with sound, it's kind of a different story. But I believe that you need someone who's going to hold entire direction. So sort of like art director, or maybe it's a few people who hold the general direction where you're going. So usually it's going to be main artists who's going to develop visuals, create a visual base where you're going, how you building your visual language in an artwork. You need creative technologists. Even if you have a good skill working with a required tech, I still suggest that you have one more creative technologist who can double check your code and sort of check all the beats which might be not coming together, or maybe again you need some have specific tool for this specific case, specific performance. So you should not be shy to find a specialist in this field. So if you need something to do with the costume, maybe some piece which everyone already is wearing, and it's gonna, I don't know, change color or doing something on top of the other experience which happened in there, talk to the people who actually can show how to make it more crafted, so it doesn't look the way you don't want it to look. Because when you're trying to do everything by ourselves, we always start in losing quality somewhere because we cannot know everything, and it's totally normal. So you need to ask specialists for specific cases. I cannot say how much is important to have enough of time to test, to test your work in different scenarios and different setups, and your location. So sometimes we do not have access to the final location where the work has to be exhibited. So you have to be prepared for all possible scenarios, because with all my love to tech, it has tendency to fail the very last moment. It happened so many times that just one thing didn't work out and everyone is in panic and how we're going to fix it. So you should be one step ahead. You need to test different scenarios, different cameras, different cables, different projectors. Maybe, I don't know, the lights are not going to work, there is not enough light, etc. Another way to prevent it is, if you cannot access location, at least try to talk to the AV technician. There is always an engineer who working on place. You need to be friends with them. With whatever digital project you are doing, befriend them way before you're going to step into the space, because they can tell you upfront, like what you need to deal with, because they know the place as their own, and you just probably going to be guests there like for 3 days, and then you have to install and deinstall immediately. As for other team members, again, if you are good with visuals but you're not confident in audio, it's a good idea to find and maybe audio engineer who can help you to clarify things with sound, maybe, or vice versa. If you're very good with audio but you maybe have some issues with visual part, which maybe creative technician cannot cover, it would be good to have another visual artist on board, or maybe even the designer, just to make sure that all elements are in place and working the way intended to audience to accept them. But another maybe unobvious team member, it's actually audience. So whatever you do, you need to test it sort of with you or with some other just test people. I don't know, you can invite your friends, or you can invite other technicians to make sure that it's actually working and engaging, because sometimes project looks cool, as technically cool, but it doesn't fulfill the main purpose, is not participatory for the audience. And that's, I believe, in a way, the most important element in immersive or XR, right? Because we want this engagement element, not just for sake of engagement, but to carry your story further. If it answers the question. So basically you need someone to hold your artistic direction. You need specialists for some specific criteria you have, right? So like if you need more expertise in audio, get audio or costume designer or whatever a specific area for you are stepping in. You need creative technician always to prove your setup and prove your code, that everything is working and you prepare for different scenarios, and AV technician on a space if you are using some space location work, right? So befriend them, they're gonna help you to make your thing happen more than anyone else in this case.
Yes, and I also think that you all should be storytellers, and you should watch out the dramatic storyline, and like you mentioned, the bond with the audience is very important, and the feedback that you get from them, and because ultimately we artists are doing it to touch the hearts of other people. And of course, the money side is quite important. So what are the usual beginner budgets that people need to secure? What is the minimum budget that you can start?
That's tricky. So I think so basically, to start, you need to make sure that you have a good laptop or computer. That's probably going to be, for the very beginning of things, is going to be your starting point. However, it don't have to be, I don't know, the strongest, the best tech. Maybe for a touch designer, it's better to go with PC. So some gaming laptops, maybe from MSI, they offer very nice budget solutions for laptops. Maybe below or about $500. So like invest, like you can get working machine starting from this money. Of course, if you have bigger budget, you can get more mine-tier laptop on your and apply with it. But like you need to start with a strong computer. You should maybe buy projector or a web camera. However, you can use webcam for very beginning. You can use web camera from your laptop. So you kind of already have this covered. For projector, honestly, to testing things, like you can buy the simplest one. I don't know, maybe $50. It's enough. Like if you're just gonna project a little bit on your wall and see how it's working. Yeah, for Arduino or microcontrollers or other parts, I suggest at first looking for used ones. Like, you don't need to invest in a last LiDAR or something like that to start. Yeah, you can research how lo-fi people doing it. Again, in such communities as touch designer, etc. There is so many hacks how you can start with a minimal setup. Yeah, so you can find them online. Like, some parts can be about, I don't know, $20 per, I don't know, the old Kinect or maybe Arduino controller. Like all other parts for Arduino, they are very, very, very peanuts cheap. Yeah, usually you can get them very lo-fi. I would say that maybe it's a good idea to have tablet, because tablet can be substitute for OSC or some audio things. So if you have it, you can, maybe it's not obvious, but you can actually use it for XR. Or otherwise, yeah, maybe investing in some fun tools like Playtronica can be nice. Playtronica is basically audio controller where you can bring sound and visual with very minimal, easy setup.
How much is that?
Playtronica? I'm not so sure. I think they start also from $50, something like that. They're not hefty expensive. Again, Touch Designer is actually free for beginner. Like, there is non-commercial version. You can just download it. If you want to, for example, if you want to add some 3D work, you can use Unreal Engine or Unity. I believe they also free. I mean, there are things you need to pay inside it, but actually you can start with very minimal setup for free. You can use Blender, which is also free. So there's many open source software which can amplify what you can do in Touch Designer. Again, if you're actually working with it, you can also work with processing or with coding, which is also basically free. So maybe getting laptop is the most important starting point here. Unfortunately, some AR applications, they can be paid by subscription or one time, you're paying one time, but not like, I mean, it's not the only way to do it, but some of them are. For photogeometry, I suggest that, oh my God, I've been using it yesterday. I forgot the name of the app. For photogeometry, there is a very Photogrammery. There is a very nice app which allows you to create 3D model, basically everything. There is free version, and yeah, unfortunately, I think that, like, but to be fair, if you're paying for 1 year, I think it's about, how much is it? $80 or $100. It sounds a lot, but if you think of it, that you're using it entire year, and basically there is no limit on how you're using it, it's not that expensive. However, I would say that this progress level from beginner into mid-level, this is where you have much more struggles and problems, sort of, because basically you can start with minimal expense, but when you start wanting to do things different level, this is where you really need to think of investment or getting some sponsorship probably for your project, because unfortunately, in commercial version of Touch Designer, it's already 600. So like from 0 to 600, it's quite a lot. And if you want to use Pro version, it's even more. It's one of the most expensive software actually as a Pro version, as well as Notch and Ableton. Like, so on this Pro level, this is where I suggest you either start looking for collaborators, so you can maybe first learn on someone's computer, someone who has access to the software, or
Share
if
the
you are
cost.
visiting some courses or maybe in a university, so you can start getting feeling of those things. And later, you need to look either for sponsorship, so some grants, especially for digital artists, and some residences, they offer you to cover your softwares. So I think this is the point where you really need to already have some portfolio built, where you can start asking that actually I'm ready like for those next steps. So starting is easy. I would say progressing is a little bit more complex in these fields.
So the beginner budget is about, from what I'm hearing, is about maybe 700 US.
I think you can start with it, definitely. Like at least you can do a few.
And then the mid-level
projects.
Mid-level is what? Mid-level is what? 5,000? Something like that.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
So like mid-level, we already talk in thousands. Yeah, so it's quite a shift.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for this detailed explanation, because I think it's going to be very useful for the people who are actually looking at this field to try their hand. And from the user perspective, I'm really interested in knowing how, like, for example, I'm looking for at my own experience, but I want to hear from you. How do users react to the immersive experiences and new media versus, in comparison to the regular video?
That is a very interesting question, because my feeling is that immersive media and XR, it's sort of young audiences art in a way, because I feel that younger generations, they have almost immediate response to it, because for them it's native to use all the technologies and they want to play with it. In a way, technology actually makes art more welcoming, because there is sort of familiarity in how you engage with it. And also it's kind of like a bridge, because traditional arts, they sometimes have this distancing from a viewer, like they
one way.
You should have a previous knowledge to understand it. You should have a background. You should have some sort of pre-understanding of what you're looking at. Technology kind of bridging it a little bit with its playfulness. So you can get into work immediately, and from how you engage in it, you can build your own opinion or feel what the artist intended you to feel or experience the story. However, for some audiences, it can be a little bit scary or unserious. That is my feeling. So even though, of course, it's not like everyone, and I saw so many people absolutely different, background, culture, age, engaging successfully in those experiences. I also feel that some have they do not really feel it as an art, or they're a little bit scared, like, why does it react to me, or why it kind of takes my data, because basically in order to get this engagement, it has to capture you first. Like, so what is happening? So I feel also some people may be uncomfortable also for these reasons, like that it's surveillance, so like what happens with this data afterwards, etc. Like, how did they know it? Even though if it's a setup, I think there was an interesting case at I think it's My Chemical Romance. Then they had like kind of XR elements to their backstage design, when during the performance at some point they're starting just showing the audience, and I think they've been using something like blob tracking tool. So basically they've been just pointing at some people in the audience, and there was like some writing next to it, or student, or it's like, I don't know, something worker, etc. And people being a little bit shocked, like, oh, how do they know it? How do they know my age? How do they recognize it? Even though it's not for real, like it's just set up. Like maybe they didn't guess it even correctly, but it has this element of like instant, like recognition,
Spotlight.
like identification. Yeah, so there is a little bit scary element to it, which I agree it's present, but I feel like, it's maybe more for people who are in general not very acceptable of technologies, or in general are sort of kind of keeping like distance with it, because for the younger audiences, again, like the more familiar you with technology, the more comfortable it makes you feel, the better going to be engagement with it. But I also think that there is important element to it that not all immersive experiences tend to be positive. Like, so sometimes, because there is a lot of like those playful setups with immersive media, I don't know, like Van Gogh exhibition, or Monet, like it all just looks beautiful, everyone taking pictures. It's like very, very light core experience. But sometimes, because it's also an artful tool, it can be about something more complex, and sometimes artists did not intend it to feel all good about it. This is also where maybe audience not always ready for it. But I think in general, it's not feedback only from immersive art, it's same feedback from any kind of participatory art or performance, right? When it's intended to be maybe given a more complex, not necessarily played emotion. So it can felt afterwards, it can felt a little bit maybe scary or make you think about something. It's not necessarily bad feedback. It's more like if you intended to do so and that the emotion audience gets, that actually it was successful. So I think that's kind of makes me, it kind of makes you think, how do you use it? So I feel like if everyone just creates playful art, it minimizes the possibility what you can achieve with XR technology. Because one of my favorite ones, examples of it, if maybe, on Venice Immersive Biennale, there was a performance, I think it's called My Little Heart. It's French performance, so I'm not sure. My French is not good. But it was very complex emotion about traumatic experience of the artist as a child, and how they had complex relationship with their own body and started accepting it growing up. But it used a lot of technology. It used a wearable art. So everyone in the audience, they sort of wear in a costume, and there is a VR and AR experience. And this story is kind of journey, so it can actually make you very emotional. Some people cry. So again, like it's actually a very good reaction, because that's what intended to happen. But I understand that maybe when people see it and see such reactions, it seems a little bit scary. Like, like why do we go to such depths, etc., or why do we use technologies this way? Yeah.
But why not?
I got carried away. I'm sorry.
No worries. But the art in general takes its unexpected trajectory. So you never know what's going to happen. So that's the point in it developing, where you don't know and you cannot forecast everything. So you just kind of go with the flow. But and of course, like the new media can enhance the physical spaces, like theaters and museums and galleries, and and also enhance their music experiences and just experiences in general, maybe even shopping experiences. So, yeah, do you have any experience in working in the phygital, like physical and new media? Or can you talk about some interesting cases?
You mean like more for daily use or or like
anything, it could be daily use or it could be public space or doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think we kind of already touched a few examples. They all sort of merge physical and digital world. Because I feel this is the core of XR experience, that we're kind of blending those two realities. Like when you experience in it, you actually experience in it, like maybe physically as well as digitally. But even though if image is digital, but you do something physically, for example, like if it's react to your emotion, etc. So you kind of in both spaces at the same time, and that's how we live nowadays, basically, with all our phones and gadgets and video calls, even right now, right? It's a sort of also XR experience in a way, talking to you.
I agree, and because in Central Asia, right now. People are actively opening hubs and like they're reimagining libraries and museums and theaters and educational spaces and public spaces in general. So I think this media could be quite helpful and it would make it the culture as a public good more accessible for the younger generations, because technology is the key to the door, and that's the pathway to attract and to even talk about heritage and intangible assets.
That's that is going back to the example of Nigerian pavilion artist at Venice. So basically, when she used traditional instruments and sort of revives them through the AR, where you can see them, you can hear their sound, and you also can see them moving and kind of transforming, using the same shape into something else. So it's kind of merging this physical and digital record of it, which I think can be very interesting. Why kind of conserving some disappearing maybe arts, crafts, languages as well. I think it would be really fascinating if we can maybe preserve some languages which are disappearing and actually talk to them, like using AI and other technologies, because this is the way to make them live. But again, it's kind of something which I can feel can be sounding very scary to some people, because sort of we're preserving it in artificial space, which is not real space, but we still can use them. So kind of feel like immersive art is always this half good and half dystopian connotation to it. But I think in a way always of technology as a magic, sort of, because it's really how you use it. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad, but we kind of in charge of how to use it, so we can shape it, especially artists, the way how they imagine it can be applied. That's why maybe I'm more thinking about artistic way of using it rather than daily using it. However, However, we live through so many XR experiences daily. I don't know, even when you order in a taxi and you can see this car kind of going through the digital map, but it's actually moving in a physical space. We are not registering it as some special experience, but actually it's also XR, it's also mixed reality experience because it's simultaneous action in 2 dimensions. But I feel like probably it's gonna be blending more and more with all the Googles and Apple trying to sort of make us used to living through the virtual reality, where you can basically all the time see sort of digital space through the Googles next to the physical. But I feel like even though it seems like it's close, but it's still not there, sort of. Even though I saw some people wearing them and going to a fashion show or something, it's still not that adjusted. So I think it's also a thing with technology. It seems like it's moving very fast, but once you start working inside the field, you actually start feeling that it's not that fast as it seems from the outside. So I think it also gives us some sort of time and opportunity to shape how it's going to develop further, because if it just develops and you realize, oh my God, it's too quick, I don't know what to do with it. No, once you start working with it, you're actually feeling more comfortable with how things are developing. It's not that rapid. There is a way to affect this change and be part of this change, which is more important. But yeah, I think XR is quite useful in daily life, and I know a lot of some online shops, they doing this XR testing room where you can try clothes on, etc. Maybe I'm just not a very practical person in this regard. I'm more like thinking on how I can tell stories and translate concepts. Probably arises and how I can use it more practically, but I'm not that much of product or UI designer in that case. However, even in my work, as I'm doing performance, I'm also trying to blend basically several realities together. It's very important for me to have physical action reflected to digital and backwards. So basically the way I build my performance, I incorporate both elements, and I'm usually like a bridge between them. So I engage with audience and I engage with technology, and we sort of all create a synergy of how we work together. So in my latest performance, I was physically engaging with audience, and then I was engaging with technology, which was revealing some parts through the physical motion behind me. I think this multi-layered experience it allows me to engage most of the audience, because everyone can choose what they react to better and how they can open up better. Because for someone, it's more natural to actually work with me and react on how I talk or how I physically try to make them collaborate with me in a performance. But for some people, it's more comforting and engaging to turn on through the technology, but yeah, I feel like it's all work together. It's not like I can switch on one or switch off, and it's still gonna work. It's not. Also because I use technology basically to show this part of the inner world which I cannot project in any other way. So this is why I always think of technology of something very poetic, almost, because it allows me to build this experience about something so complex and fragile, which I don't know how else I can sort of reveal using just analog tools. Because I'm usually work with physical states or very complex emotion, like, I don't know, like nostalgic disorientation. It even sounds complicated. Yeah, but it's actually it comes very naturally to me how I can visualize it through technology and how I can process this feeling, like when you feel disoriented using immersive technology. Yeah. So
you also shared how you work as an XR artist. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I just at the end, just closing, I wanted you, but thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think it's been a great conversation, and I've been to a lot of new corners of this new media, and I'm sure our audiences will appreciate that. But I wanted you just to give maybe a quick advice to the new multimedia artists, the ones that want to use VR, AR, XR, and MR. What would be your advice?
I think to be fearless, to be honest. I think that you should not think that technology is something complicated and there is like no way I can think how I'm gonna do this. It's more about you need to really to focus on your story, your positionality as an artist, and what you want to say, even before choosing the tools. And if you find that immersive technology of any kind, XR, AR, it's the best way to engage your audience and to convey what you want to say, you will definitely find a way to do it. And the way you find to do it is that you are not be afraid to contact other people and ask for help, especially in such supportive community as are immersive and mixed media artists. There is really nothing impossible in way you want to achieve it. The thing is that, you should really be thoughtful about why you're doing this and whether it's the best way. So I suggest do not think about incredible project with a lot of tech just because it looks cool. You need to think what's the best telling your story, and maybe you'll realize that you don't need that much tech and you can actually make a very powerful project with a minimal setup, which is gonna be much more touching than just from the beginning aiming to the big show and just blasting a lot of colorful visuals everywhere. So to think about what you want to tell about your audience, and do not afraid to ask. That's important. I think it's applicable not only for immersive arts, but to be fair, every artist goes through those stages. So I think that's the most important advice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I totally agree that you start small and you fear not, and experiment and use help and ask for help and collaborate with others. And next time I'm going to order a Uber, I'm going to know that it's an XR experience. So that was the podcast with Kристина Хара, multimedia artist, curator and educator. And this podcast was part of digital skills for cultural and creative industries. So thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thank you for having me.